Yeah. So how's it been for you? Is the question. How's it been?
Well, this is the thing. I feel emotionally I shouldn't be too wrapped up in it all because nothing's changed. I've always lived that hermit lifestyle. I've lived and worked from home, and my day would be I would either go and do a food shop or I'd just go on a big walk around the park. So that's exactly the same, but the tone of which completely different, incredibly heavy and stressful. And I think times of crisis like this, people kind of get stripped back to their raw moral values, and it's interesting to see how people behave and act. I think some people have gone really selfless and kind, and then some people get really nasty with it. And the social media is a wasteland for this sort of thing at the moment. And I think this is why it's important to have real life conversations, as real as it can get, because I think
Yeah.
you see all these tweets, and there's this huge diversity of opinions. Some, especially in the autism circle, some people are really struggling, and other people are thriving. This has almost been, one of the most productive times for them. And I scorn at them with a position of envy because I wish I could be thriving like that. But then it's like, are you actually thriving, or are you just convincing yourself and convincing others as a survival technique? Which is also okay. We've got to do what we can do to get by.
And wouldn't that be the same in any context? Actually, that's not just autism specific. It might be exaggerated, like everything with the
Oh
autism
yeah,
perspective. Yeah.
I, I've began to realize that any of the issues that lie within autism circles, it's not an autism problem. It's usually a human condition rather than the autism condition. And then online, everything is turned up to 11. And I was talking about this on Twitter last night. All the dramas and stuff that happen within the autism community, there's the exact same dramas playing out in any other circle. So there's no point in giving the autistics a hard time for it, because it's not them. It's just part of the fabric of the modern culture we live in.
So what helps you keep grounded in the day?
Keeping busy, that's the big thing. Having some work to do. When it first started, I had a 4-week deadline of doing some more trading cards for Star Wars, what I do. And having that work and pressure of a deadline keeps me busy, keeps me distracted. And then when that was finished, there was a few weeks of, oh God, there's nothing to do. I've got to entertain myself. I've got to find something I can do that I'm passionate enough to stick with, rather than get bored or get distracted looking at the news and stuff. Because I had a really bad habit of watching the 24-hour news cycles. And there's not enough new news to justify that. So, you're getting always sensationalist media that's just doom and gloom. And it's hard not to then have that impact on mental health.
You've got a great sense of humor. I noticed that in your profile. You have fun. You seem to have fun with yourself, which I really think is great.
I think I've always wrongly, quite negatively compared myself to Robin Williams. Like, I'd much rather turn anything dark or painful into something funny or entertaining for other people, because I wouldn't want them to go through that. But it's interesting, like when the lockdown first started, I was doing all these funny little video skits and playing all these characters and just really having fun with it. And that helped. But then, the more it goes on, the less funny it becomes.
Okay.
But I know that's for me. There's still good content and viral things going out there. But
yeah, but you're being self-aware. There's a lot of self-awareness, which is you're feeling that I'm going to do something and then something doesn't satisfy you, or I'm doing this, it's satisfying me and it stops, so I have to find something else to satisfy myself. That's a real good balance of self-awareness and also frustration with self. I think that's really normal.
Yeah, I don't know. As I'm sure we all do, we have hundreds of ideas in a day. And it's about filtering out which one's the good idea and then which one's for want of a better word, marketable idea. What's going to be good, what's going to be appropriate to put out there. Especially when emotions are running so high, you don't want to be controversial or kind of push it too far.
You do a lot of your communicating online. Is that where you get your connection?
Yeah, I always have. And then obviously now with the lockdown, it's essential. Social media is our one link to humanity. But then when you realize it's kind of this artificial reality, it's hard to manage that, because you're seeing. The problem with social media is, again, this isn't an autism problem, but we see all these idyllic lifestyles and we compare our true selves to other people's social masks, and it kind of creates this disconnect. And you're left thinking, what am I doing wrong? Why aren't I doing as well as these people? when the reality of the situation is that's probably a bit false or exaggerated on their end. And it's, you just kind of get this.
And do you think you've learned that with maturity? Because that's quite an adult thought, that they're projecting something that I aspire to. I know that's not good for me. I'm still doing it, but actually I know that's not their reality either. So I can at some point put myself back in my center, because actually, although I'm still doing it and I'm feeling frustrated, it isn't the truth. So I can justify not doing that as well. That's a very adult perspective, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because
it's
I've got kids and they haven't really got that perspective yet, I don't think.
I guess it's like a weird mix of empathy for others and understanding of others, but also self-reflection and understanding yourself, your value, and your place in it all.
Where did you learn that?
It might have came after the autism diagnosis, because I was late diagnosed, 25, 26, just before my birthday. So that's when it really, I've always been quite self-reflective as a person anyway, working out what's going on. What does this mean? What's going on here? How should I react to this? But then when you then add autism to the mix, like, oh, okay, I'm autistic. So my thoughts and feelings, is this the autism or is this just me being a human being? What does my behavior have an impact on to others, and what does others have on me? It's really interesting. I've kind of gone deep into like philosophy at the moment, and I'm currently reading a lot on a German philosopher called Immanuel Kant, and he suggests that we're all our own moral agents and we should only worry about our own moral choices, but our moral choices should be dictated on, if we do something, would it be okay if everyone else was doing the same thing all the time? And I think that's a really interesting thing.
That's really interesting about this isolation thing, isn't it? Because it's like,
yeah,
if I go to the shops, that's fine. If I go and visit my friend, that's fine. But what if everybody else goes and visits their friend? And actually, that's very interesting, isn't it? Because that's where a lot of the challenges are at the moment, about people overstepping the moral code of this isolation, and people getting very frustrated about that. You know, I'm not like that, so why should you do that?
And, you know, I think I've certainly had it from certain stuff. There's a pressure to, you know, entertain others and be there for others. But then if that involves breaking the lockdown or breaking actual laws that are in place, is that okay? And I think with time, I've started to realize, not really. I'd rather just abide by the law.
And are you making genuine connections with people? Because obviously there's lots of opportunities for connection. Do you find that there are some genuine connections that give you that kind of validation that this is authentic, this one?
Not as much as I'd like, actually. I think this is the first face-to-face conversation I've had in 3 or 4 weeks.
How does it feel?
Good. It's really nice. Because when it first started, I did. There's the 2 things you shouldn't do in quarantine, and that's cut your own hair and start a podcast. And I've done both.
Well, the hair looks good. How's the podcast going?
The hair looked amazing. I was really happy and comfortable with it until someone on Instagram said I look like American History X, the neo-Nazi film. I was like, oh dear.
Yeah, but it's only when you start talking and smiling we realise there's so much more.
You know, I'm not the bloated corpse of Ed Norton, but yeah, the podcast thing was great because I was doing it for me, just to talk to other autistics and stuff, and that was very valuable in gaining the perspective from both within the isolation, but then outside of that. You know, when you're on Twitter and just doing comments and replies and stuff, it's not the same as a real conversation.
No.
But to spend an hour on Skype or whatever with an actually autistic person, you get to see a 3-dimensional human being, and that's been really helpful. And, you know,
as the proliferation of online media relationships, content and talking, is that actually easier than face-to-face and going out and having to do your meetings or publicly kind of engage with people on a grand scale or small scale? Do you find it easier?
I guess in theory it's a bit easy because I guess it's more, for want of a better word, narcissistic. It's my posts, come and comment on it, or it's someone else's post and I'm giving my chip in. It's not as tangible as a real life conversation, but I think they both have the same tiring effect. You know, when I do these meetings or whatever in real life, I need like a day after to recover.
Yeah.
But I think with social media, the same thing happens, but I don't take that time to recover because I'm addicted to my phone. I'm constantly refreshing and checking. Nothing's happening. Why am I doing that? Why am I wasting? I could be watching a movie or a TV show or reading a book. And I think there's definitely a little bit of addiction to devices that I need to address. But maybe.
And again, I think it's very easy to think that that's your issue. It's everybody's. I mean, I'm talking across the spectrum, and also I work in a different field, which is nothing to do with autism, world of corporates and training people to manage their anxiety. And it's the same issues. It's really interesting, which is why I'm curious to hear whether the autism perspective is massively different, or whether there's anything the autistic community could teach us about isolation and the importance of routines and liking things to feel safe at a purely grounded core level, which none
It
of us
helps
do
that
at
the
the
dialogues
moment.
go in that way, but it's also important, as you've kind of hinted at, sometimes the autism doesn't matter. We're still human beings, and I think that's one thing where I find myself getting alienated from some of the autism culture, because it's quite quick to deny its own humanity for the sake of condemning the other, and I think that makes me quite uncomfortable.
That requires empathy, and as we know that the autistic condition, sometimes for some people that's not their strength, and I suppose as in any condition that's not their strength. So you've got to recognize that other people are feeling stuff too.
Oh yeah, it's
coming out of feeling condemned and feeling marginalized and not heard. And this is the first kind of generation that's gone, you know what, I can say stuff and people will listen, so you know what, I'm going to say it. So there's probably a little bit of overkill on that, but again, everybody's different, aren't they? I'm sure you see it. Somebody puts a very well-intended post up, and my goodness, the range of responses, and I'm thinking, gosh, I don't even have it in me to think that. So the fact that someone thinks it and is happy to report it, we live in a crazy world. And maybe I keep saying to people, just be more curious. Use this time to be as curious as possible, because there will be some learning, not necessarily some massive wisdom that changes, but there will be some learning that we take forward. And if you don't look, you might miss it. That's what I keep saying to people.
Massively. It's always about having an open mind. I think when I first started getting involved in the autism communities, I kind of politically went to the left, all the neurodiversity. Autism's wonderful, aren't we? Great. And then kind of condemning the darker side who don't like their condition and they're quite negative about it. And I think the truth lies in the middle. You've got to be a bit of a centrist in terms of autism politics. You've got to respect everyone's view, because there's obviously that popular quote, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. And you really need to hold on to that to realize that everyone's lived experience is so different and we're not the same. So why should we be treating each other and applying these rules?
But that takes, and you have this, and I've not met you very many times, well, once, but it was a pleasure to have a natural warmth, a natural empathy, a natural balanced view, which has probably got nothing to do with your autism. Do you know what I mean? That's who Rees is. And then the autism kind of perspective of the world kind of throws some of that out of kilter, but you default back to that. I'm sure there's some days when you don't feel that, like all of us. And I suppose that's what I'm always trying to explore with autism. When you meet, and I have met, people who are very dogmatic, very single-focused, passionate in their belief, it's the one thing they can hold on to, the truth of what they think, whether it be, that's my, you can't have my drink, that's my drink too, this is my view on world politics. I kind of have to be more empathetic, but I'm thinking you're not helping yourself with that rigidity, because actually it's a much better place to live where you live, where you can go, actually, this is interesting. But then they've got their lived experience of maybe being a lot more persecuted and marginalized. And also there's a personality trait. There are dogmatic people in in any community that will go, no,
absolutely, you can remove
I think that
neurotype
and bugging you type thing, I'm always curious to find out what is the autism that I can, when I say allow, that's a terrible thing to say, but I can accept that that's an immovable part of them, a bit like my untidiness and my lateness. I'm 58, it's never going to change. And then what is the bit that the gold that you want to mine in somebody that you can help them really use to shine and then forge their way? Because as we know, as you say, being more open-minded, being more curious and accepting makes for a better life, I think. It's easier.
To an extent, it's hard not to feel the weight of, again, I'm very disenfranchised at the moment with all of it. And while people's views and stuff are valid, I think we live in an age of this cancel culture, and there's always got to be a controversy and a drama because the social media algorithms love it. It really generates attention.
What, when you have like a shock horror probe headline?
Yeah, if a clickbait article or someone, trying to cancel another person, it's
also how are we going to get our clickbait up? What can we call this? Act for Autism slams Rees's opinions on.
I'll say a slur. I won't.
Lovely lady from Act for Autism talks to Rees over a cup of tea. That's not going to sell anything, is it?
It's a shame though, because that's wholesome. It's nice, and there's no room for that in.
I suppose it has to be extreme nice, because you either have to do you have to do a Colonel Tom if you really want to get the clicks, don't you? You have to be doing something magnanimous with autism has enabled me to do this. In spite of my autism, I'm doing this, but
It's funny. This ties back to me being kind of outside of myself and stuff, because I think I've got this hardwired, what would be the word? Need to entertain and be funny, or be, I don't know, just something, be entertaining, be funny, just be there in the moment. And that all comes back to, probably because I'm a middle child, you could take the autism out of it, middle child,
me too,
issues, psychological things. And I'm always going to want to be funny and entertaining. But then the way to do that successfully kind of goes against my moral code. I used to do it. Last year I was really into that kind of the online version of autism advocacy, where you talk about the problems, you talk about the problems, you talk about the problems, you talk about the problems. And eventually I realized it doesn't yield results, because one, you're saying exactly the same as what 100 other accounts are saying. So you're not even being an authentic version of you. And even if you're trying to do something funny within that, it's limiting and it's divisive. And I don't know. I just think.
But I think you are funny. I think you're good at being funny.
I try, and it's.
No, but I think there's something about, it's almost like you saw that, the way you talked about it was almost like it was a psychological protection. Oh, I do funny to keep myself safe. And I'm thinking, well, we all do the thing that we do well to validate ourselves. And also what you have, and I've only, I haven't been a follower for long, you have this wonderful ability to, if somebody then comes back at you for that, you have the intelligent argument for why you're doing it. So you're not just funny, you're not just funny and stupid, you're funny and clever, and that works really, really well.
It's funny because this will happen last night, and this is why I haven't slept, because of the stress.
Oh.
I did a tweet about, do you remember that film? It's a 12-year-old film called Tropic Thunder, where Robert Downey Jr. plays an actor.
I'm not a big film buff, so I don't know that one, but anyway.
Oh, it's a comedy where he plays blackface, because it's a joke on how certain actors in Hollywood can think they can do that.
Okay.
So it's a bit controversial, but to say it's racist is a stretch. To bring it up 12 years later to try and cancel this actor, you're not doing that because it's the right thing to do. You're doing that because you want to show how righteous you are. Look, I noticed this offensive thing in the past, and it's very upsetting. And then at the very same time, someone pulled up a 2-year-old tweet of mine where I was being a bit of a bitch. And it was bizarre, because I was in a position where I wanted to show contrition, because the way I was behaving back then, I've had such a long journey where I've, looked into cancel culture and the way that works. And I find it morally reprehensible, and I can't stand by that. But then also digging up someone's old tweets is not cool, and you're looking for a fight. And I think if you're looking for a fight, it's not as morally righteous as you think it is.
Their argument is, how far away from your last argument do you have to be for it to be called hypocrisy? Do you know what I mean? So if you said something 20 years ago that you now don't believe in, and you're saying the opposite, and people go, well, you're a hypocrite. But if it was 2 weeks ago, it's that, isn't it? How is there a timeline where you can actually be forgiven for everything you said before? And I suppose that's what's really hard for politicians, isn't it? Because any politician that stands up for anything they believe in now, someone's going to trawl back to see what they said when they were 7 or 12 or 24, or whether they smoked pot in university. And that's really hard. And I suppose the answer is, do you just keep quiet about it and let other people do the arguing for you? Because I imagine other people would argue for you and say, oh, leave the lad alone. Look at what he's doing. It's really good what he's doing now.
It did turn quite ugly. And
did you enjoy that? Did you like getting into that?
No, I couldn't sleep. It was horrible.
What's the rule? Should you just turn it off, or is that you can't? It's insatiable. You just have to kind of follow it.
Well, you can't win with that situation. If you ignore it, it validates it. If you apologise, they will just completely destroy you. So it was a balance of me saying, hey, listen, this was a long time ago. I don't stand by what I said. I'm not proud of what I said. And if you follow my Twitter, you can see that I slowly become disenfranchised with being a part of that scene, and slowly realise that, cancel culture and being horrible to other people to get your own personal success is not the way forward. Okay, it is the way forward, but it's not one you can live with. No. So, if you were to consider it in the context of my whole person and whole being, shouldn't matter. Rees has grown.
Do you feel it was okay in the end?
hopefully. Like,
Don't look.
yeah, no, that should be the end of it, because I think it's one of those things where neither party's going to look good, so it's not worth doing. But it's interesting. I think it stems from YouTube culture. You know, you get these young YouTubers and they actively start fights with each other. You know, they do these videos criticizing each other, and that kind of carries on into normal social media, and it's a way to kind of build a following.
I've realized that you really only get a following if you're extreme in your thinking, because I do a lot of maybe, could be, because I never want to be seen as wrong. I don't want to anger people. I want to sort of just offer people options to think through. But of course, thought pieces don't really excite people. They want an absolute, which they can go, oh, that's my truth too, or I don't believe in that. And that's really hard, because then you think, well, I don't know what I actually have an absolute truth in, and I'm not particularly controversial.
That's the thing. And I think when you're a moderate like that, you don't really belong to either side. So you kind of get treated as the enemy by each side. And
or wishy-washy.
And then that's the thing, when you're trying to be funny in a realm where being offended and attacking people for being controversial, whatever, is, you know, it's the daily routine. It gets really difficult. And how do you be funny about autism without laughing at autism? And you've got to really...
Yeah, but you can do that if it's you. I can never do that, because
I think I found the balance with the live show that was going to happen.
I'm so looking forward to that happening. It will happen. It will happen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can't wait. I paid a lot of money for the props. It's happening.
Yeah, no, I just think you've got such a witty way and a warmth about you, because that it's interesting, because I don't know if you watch any of Ricky Gervais's stuff. There's no reason why you should, but he has an ability to take the piss out of himself. And where he falls down, and this is, you know, he's so successful, he hasn't fallen down, but he hasn't got charm sometimes, so he pisses people off about the way he explains. Whereas you can go to the edge, but you've still got this wonderful charm in the way in which you defend yourself. And you kind of go, well, and I think that's really useful. I think use that as a currency. I'm giving you feedback as someone who's coached people in performance for years. I think it's really a wonderful balance that you might not appreciate that you've got, this ability to laugh at yourself with a deep insight and intelligence, but also then apologize with charm.
It's definitely an online thing, and I'm a huge fan of John Ronson, and his book You've Been Publicly Shamed covers that. If you let yourself be publicly shamed, you will get destroyed. Whereas someone like Ricky Gervais or Piers Morgan, if you hold your ground and don't admit guilt and don't back down, or if you double down, somehow you get away with it. Like J.K. Rowling, she said something transphobic, went missing off Twitter for a few weeks, and then came back and it was fine. So it's interesting if you engage and play the game.
Is that because she's J.K. Rowling then? Or I think it's also because news moves on, doesn't it?
Exactly. It's the news cycle. I think Always Sunny in Philadelphia did an episode on that, and if you can just get yourself out of the news cycle, wait for something more controversial to come along, it's fine.
I mean, there was months back, I said something, and there was 3 comments about it. I was terrified. Someone said, turn your phone off for 24 hours. It'll have gone. It'll have moved down their news feed. And because my desperate need to fix it, you know, are you okay? I'm sorry. Leave it 24 hours and it's so far down your newsfeed, nobody else is reading it. And that's
they want the interaction, they want the back and forth, and it's the best thing is to just not give it to them. You know, I'm so proud that I've been able to write a 40-minute stand-up set, jokes about autism that 1, doesn't mock autistic people, and 2, doesn't mock anyone else.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the popular social media stuff, it's about ha ha ha, neurotypicals are bad, ha ha ha, parents are bad, and it's no, just come on, we're better than that. It's just playground bullying sort of humor.
Yeah.
And just get clever with it. And I think I did, but I made the mistake of teasing some of it online out of context. So I had all these blue jigsaw pieces made for a joke I was doing.
Oh yeah, I saw.
And someone felt the need to explain to me what that jigsaw piece means, and it's like, dude, I wrote a book, I've done all this work.
No, I know, but also I just think, really, do we have to keep
happy and righteous and perfect? We wouldn't be arguing about it online.
No, exactly. And we're a bit bored as well at the moment, aren't we? So we're kind of fueling ourselves
massively, which is why I think, you know, people are digging up movies from 12 years ago trying to get angry, and it shows their true colours, and it's a real shame that I guess that's the problem with the left. They kind of get offended about small things. There's so many things you could get angry and, you know, want to fight for right now. So why are you worrying about things that happened in the past? Why are you worrying about, he said a joke that was a bit offensive? Just ignore it. If you know.
Well, I actually found out, because I was just reading, I was part of an online, see what you think about this. I was writing, I've just enrolled in some online courses just because I want to see what other people are saying about autism, because we're writing a book and I've got to make sure I get my facts right. But we're writing on our practice, but I'm putting some other stuff about history and things. Anyway, and it was from the University of Kent, and it's like 6 modules and it's free. And the first module said, so does autism exist? And I just thought, well, I'm deeply offended by that. So I actually wrote, because they had a little comments thing for the students, I'm deeply offended by this, because there are lots of other ways of saying that. Like, what is autism? It would be a better question, right? Does it exist? Or, the fact that autism is called so many things, is it confusing to understand what it is? And then they've got this, and then it goes, and so I wrote something about that, and then they wrote back saying, I think you've misunderstood the point. I thought, I'm not going to get into a debate here. I just needed to kind of flag up that as a professional, I find that offensive, considering, we've taken a long time to create this autistic identity for people. And then they had this thing, the big question, at the very end, the big question. Having been through this module, what do we still think about the big question? You kind of go, don't ask the question, because don't keep asking us, does it exist? Because what are you saying about people's identity? And in fact, I always think that autism has its own challenges, but the identity challenge for autistic individuals is probably the hardest, because society asks that kind of question consistently. What is autism? Does it exist? Does it really exist? Bad parenting? Is it this? Just leave it alone. Let the people go and find out what they want to find out. The rest of the time, meet these people as individuals. Having a label can be quite useful because it helps you, frame some things and explain some things, but challenging the label itself, well, that's what, grandmothers and relatives do when they go, well, have they really got autism? Or they just badly behaved? Anyway, so I got a bit irate about that, noticing that I got irate and started twittering. And then I thought, step back, because I'm not going to change anything, am I? I just know. I thought, that's good. That's my fight. That's my fight for your identity. I thought that was all right. And my son,
I've had that thought a lot. Like 2019, I wasn't involved in any organizations or groups or support networks and stuff. And I was criticizing them to the hilt, the slightest, miswording or whatever. Yeah. Provocative headline. I wouldn't even get past the headline because I'd be so wrapped up in, they said person with autism. I won't read that article. Doesn't matter anymore. I'm too angry about the use of language.
Yeah.
That might be incredibly personal to the person they're writing about. So,
yeah.
So and then when I started going to these proper support groups, and I got so offended after the first one, I nearly walked out, and I was ready to tweet, this is so offensive, they're so patronizing, yada, yada, yada. And then I quickly realized I'm getting offended because I want to be offended, and because I want that controversy online, because it'll get me attention, it will sell my books, it will put the spotlight onto me. And then I quickly realized, hold on, that group was actually quite good for someone who needs it. I don't need it because my diagnosis was over a year ago. I've read all the books and stuff, so I've got that information.
You're ahead.
Someone else, this is incredible. Yeah. So why am I being so selfish? And that's been an important movement for me, to acknowledge that support for adult autistics exists. Because, you get a lot of the bigger accounts and stuff saying it's not a thing. You get your diagnosis, you get sent on your way, which is the case for, the majority of autistics. They do get let down, they fall through the cracks of the system. But then to deny that the existence of the support networks is incredibly harmful, because then nothing happens. Whereas if you go, hold on, there's these little clusters of groups in certain regions and certain councils, we need to embrace them, support them. Their foundations we need to build upon, rather than foundations we deny. Well,
unfortunately, getting angry, unless you've got massive power, doesn't really... look at this whole situation with the PPE and everything. Everyone was furious. I don't know what happened there, and I'll never know, because, of course, every story is different. I've got friends in hospitals where they say they've got loads of equipment, they've got hardly any patients. But my point is the anger that the media were trying to create in us. But we were disempowered. We couldn't do anything about it. So I sometimes think you're right. We have to go, let's look at what's working. Let's look at what's really good out there and just build from that. That's what I that's my premise as well, because I get a lot of very angry parents coming to our workshops saying, there's nothing. I'm saying, well, we're here. You're here on a course with us. So that's something. So let's build from that, or create your own. If you don't like what's happening, create your own.
I think it was something that you said that stuck with me. I think it was you. I think I said something about the lack of support, and you said, what is it you actually want? And it really stuck with me, because I didn't know what I wanted. I was just angry that it didn't exist.
Yeah.
And that's a really weird position to have. Yeah. I'm angry. What about? I don't know.
Yeah. I'm really angry there's no support. I'm going, well, you've got a 4-week workshop funded by the county council. So that's something. And Jane and I are here and we're offering you, we've got a sheet of all the different clubs in the county. If that's not on there, tell us what you need and we'll go and try and create it. But you can't say there's nothing, because actually there are a lot of people being actively supported by autism support networks. But of course,
Yeah.
they're not shouting about the lack of support because they're getting supported.
But that was back when I was really wrapped up in this kind of, the online brand of advocacy is very much driven by vitriol. For better or for worse, you know, when it's a genuine, we're angry because, you know, a scientist has done whatever or whatever, I can understand that. But when you're just willfully picking little things to get mad about for the attention, it's not as progressive as it looks. It's actually counterproductive, but it works well for the individuals. You know, you get the Patreon money or the book deal or whatever people are in it for. But then at what cost? Look at all the autistic people who need that support, and you're saying, no, you've got no support. Deal with it. Hold on, no, just go. I don't know.
Maybe there's a feeling that if we make everyone angry, there'll be a rising up, but there won't be a rising up, because that's not how the autistic community works, because you actually need a collective, and the autism community aren't brilliant at being collective together, are they, in a physical body? Anyway, it is what it is, isn't
We live
it?
in an age where it's either, you know, your 10-second TikToks are popular, or, you know, your big 2-hour podcasts are popular. So I think there's room for both. Like, you know,
Okay.
with this sort of thing, you could edit it down into short Instagram-friendly sound bites, but then you could also have like a long-form thing on YouTube. Because, you know, the issue with autism is it's such a broad topic. You need that nuance. You need longer dialogues. And I think that's why a lot of it gets lost online, because I understand TikTok especially is this horrible place because autism is a joke on there. You know, it's just kids mocking autism. And
who's mocking autism? What, on TikTok? I don't really know much about TikTok.
Teenage boys mainly. It's so it's, yeah, but it's, I think we live in the age where now the school bullies and stuff have a platform, and
but no one monitors that. I thought it was just harmless girls doing funny dances with their dogs or something.
Mostly, or lip syncing to comedy that already exists. Let's not go down that road.
Okay, we're too old. Thankfully, it's further down the line, isn't it? It's for younger people.
And there's a lot of privacy concerns around it, but that's another story for another time. But it's interesting how social media work. I guess the theme of this is going to be autism within the realm of social media, because that seems to be the conversation we've been having. So, yeah, it's interesting what goes popular and what doesn't, what the algorithm likes and what it doesn't. I think that's the important thing. Because there's so many, you know, young autistic writers and stuff that I hang out with. They're amazing. They're doing great work, but they get no following. They get no traction because they're not engaging in the controversy. They're not, you know, they're not attacking a bigger account because they know that if that big account's made a transgression, that a lot of their followers will migrate over, and that's how it works.
But the other question is, how much value is it? How much value is in that little number that says 20,000 or 7,000? Or because I was speaking to people, I said, okay, so we put up some posts when we first started to parents, beginning, and first few days we're getting 2,000 views. I thought, gosh, that's a lot. And then within 2 weeks, that was going down to 300. Now I don't know whether they didn't like it, or I don't know why there was that. I don't know what it meant. I had no sense. Whereas if you're selling a book, at least you know, oh, I've sold this many books. People have actually committed their $9.99. They might never read it. I actually don't care, but they've actually committed. And it's really it's false validation in a way, isn't it? And what are people hoping for in the autistic community by being on social media? Is it money? Is it validation? Is it their voice being the voice that now represents autism? What do people want?
I assume if you to ask that question broadly, the predominant answer would be awareness or acceptance. They're one and the same. But when you strip that back, you start to see, this is going to sound really cynical because it is, but these accounts, they're in it for themselves, they're in it for their personal brand. And I don't know if there's room for influencers in activism. Influencers work great as showing idyllic lifestyles and selling products, but they shy, like a lot of the autism conversations online, it's about, you know, person first terminology, or, you know, how an autistic person just chooses to, you know, identify. That argument is going for years, and it will go on for years to come online because it's an easy way to get an emotional reaction out of someone.
Yeah, if you look at I think you're right about it's about lifestyle, but you've also got then the wisdom influence. So you've got the Russell Brands and the Brené Browns. This is very kind of in the neurotypical world. People who just say something like silence is beautiful. And suddenly it's like, oh my God, that's new. So we've known that forever. It's that. So how do you, because I've been working in therapy and as a psychologist for years, and I've always talked about being curious and being a detective about life and letting emotions flow through you. I've always talked about that. And then people write about that and they get thousands of hits. I'm thinking, well, I already knew that. So why is it when I say it, it doesn't have any value? When other people, it does have value to the people I say it to, but somebody says it in a kind of beautiful kind of sepia kind of, with a pot plant, and suddenly it's very accessible. I don't know. So could autism do that? But I suppose autism can only really give wisdom to the autistic community about autism.
Well, that's the problem.
How you live your life, isn't it?
It becomes this cycle of feeding on itself because it's preaching to the converted.
Yeah.
To most people, autism is not really a word in their vocabulary. They don't think about it much. But then to us, it's always in our heads. And you have to realize that to some people, autism means very little. But then to other people, it is their whole world. And it's about respecting both views.
You've also got, from my perspective, obviously, because I'm a mother of, so you've got the parent, I've got the lived experience. I've also worked with a lot of young people, so I'm really concerned about their output, the way they live and helping them live better. Then there's the commercial aspect. So if I want to make some money as a company, I then have to sell our ideas to people. So I'm selling it to the county councils to teach to their staff. And I suppose from an autistic person yourself, who's your audience? And that's what people maybe have to decide. Is my audience other autistics? Is my audience all the people I've hated thus far in my life that didn't understand me? Or all the people I want to love in my life and bring into my life? Or, am I trying to be, like Damien Milton, who's at the academic end, Olga Bogdashina, who's at the kind of psychological end? You think, got to find your place, haven't you? I mean, when you do your shows, are you presuming that it's going to be an autistic audience or what's your thinking?
Yeah, I don't think you can answer that question at all. And I'm in a position where I want to entertain, I want to be popular, I want to be in that spotlight, I want to be, hey, look at me. But I also really want to push the conversation forward in terms of autism, and I also want to break new ground in that space. And it's a scary place to break ground. Me doing a book launch that's actually a kind of comedy show, but also a kind of really serious and dark advocacy thing. Am I breaking new ground, or has no one done that before because it shouldn't be done? It'll be interesting to find out.
I always think stick to your authentic self.
It's tricky. I tried to research what was out there, and I ended up just basically going down a stand-up comedy rabbit hole and looking at it through that frame. I'm sure you look at things through a theatrical lens, and that definitely helps you make a unique brand. Because no offense to all the the charity speaks and stuff, but they seem very safe. I assume it's purposely, especially when they're funded by charities and stuff. You have to play it safe. You have to play to the mass audience. You have to be very.
But what would not safe look like? If you could be really not safe, what would it look like?
I don't know. I don't want to be purposefully edgy or controversial. But I do want to be funny, and I want to be.
Okay, so who are you being? Because again, within the autism context, who are you being funny against? You could be funny against the history of it all, the madness. You can be funny against the medical profession and the way they viewed it. You can be funny You can be funny against teachers who get it so wrong. You can be funny about autism because it's funny, like we're all funny. So again, that's because in your funny, there's also a bit of jibing, isn't there? There's also
it's always very barbed.
So who are we cross with? Who do we want to kind of hole out and go like, look at your behaviour? Because that's probably where you're being funny.
Well, that's the important thing, and it's about calculating where you're throwing your punches. Because take the jigsaw controversy I got. I'm not going to tell what the joke is because it's very much a physical thing that needs to be shown rather than told. But it was very much a joke that was written to mock Autism Speaks and their use of a jigsaw piece, while also respecting people who don't see the jigsaw piece as that symbol, or they're trying to reclaim it. You've got to balance it so you're not offending people or not.
But then you've got still a whole spectrum of the community that don't even know what the issue is, or why what's the jigsaw puzzle? Why is it a problem? And then you've got to explain that, or what's Autism Speaks? Because again, I've only got my relationship with Autism Speaks based on all the anger. But I'm also a great believer that autism in any person's context has its natural trajectory if you leave it alone. I have this picture, I don't know what you feel about it, where I talk about anybody can be a daffodil and pop up and grow and look like everybody else and get knocked down by the dog and pop up again and then the frost comes and every year they pop up these beautiful daffodils, but they all look the same, and then they go, and then there's an orchid, right? And autistic kids for me are like orchids, because you look and you kind of go, there's not much going on here, and then suddenly pop pop pop, they think, oh, I've got it, I've mastered orchids, I'm going to get loads of them, and then you go, oh, that one's not working on that shelf, or well, hang on a minute, and then you're just about to give up on it again because it looks like a stick, and then suddenly it goes pop pop pop, and it actually does its own thing. In fact, if you just leave it alone and give it what you think is the best nurture, and just stand back and stop poking it and prodding it and looking at it every day and thinking there's nothing happening here, it just does amazing. That might be a naive image, but that's my metaphor, I think.
No, I get it.
I always say that I play the hand I'm dealt. So, I've been given the autism card and I'm going to make it work. And I speculated I did this radio interview. It was very much about, well-being and all that very positive stuff. And I left him on the question, if I didn't have autism,
would I have had the success I've been lucky enough to have in my career? And I think, no.
I wouldn't have been that motivated or driven if I didn't have the autism. I'd be in a 9-to-5 office job. I'd have a wife and kids by now.
You'd be a daffodil.
A weed. Just sticking out of the concrete.
One of those daffodils that looks a bit wilted after the season that just hangs there going, I'll wait till next year till I get my pay rise.
Oh yeah, that was the thing. It's always...
No. I think someone who did the quote from my book, he put it perfectly. I've got it here. Rees makes the art that most people say that they will do one day a stunning reality, and I really agree with that. Like, I know so many people, especially in my field, they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this big comic book or whatever one day. And they never do. And I think autism's taught me to live in the moment. And I think that's a great positive you can take from it is...
Were you always like that? Were you like that as a young lad, even before your diagnosis?
Yeah, as a young person, I was terrible. Like, I kind of didn't take school seriously, so I didn't really get any good grades. I didn't know what I wanted to do afterwards. I was like, oh, I'll just go work in a shop or whatever, it'll be fine. And that's what I did for a few years. And then I worked for this loan company. I was making tons of money, but going door to door.
Debt repayments, the moral weight of that kind of changed my relationship
with money. Seeing always, families break up because of debt, and that was on me. And it kind of changed my attitude towards money and towards jobs and careers. And it was very much a case of, I'm going to do what I want to do. And at the time I was really into comics. I was like, I'll just make a comic, see what happens. Looking back, terrible. I couldn't draw, I could barely write, but it was enough to get me noticed.
That just kind of snowballs. Success breeds more success. So while
the autism book is so successful, people see that as my debut. That's my 11th book. It's, overnight success took me 5 or 6 years.
That's important for people to know as well, because people can get very stuck when they see someone just arriving at success, because they don't know how to kind of get out of the inertia.
That really ties back into, I think, what has become the overall theme of this chat is we look on social media and, we see the good stuff. You don't see all the stuff that came before it, and it's very filtered and sanitized. So it's important to have that reality of, oh no, this was a really bad time for me to get to where I am now. And even where I am now, it's not that great. I still have a long way to go. And yeah, so I don't know, it's tricky, and maybe we shouldn't compare ourselves to other people even when it's in the same field, because again, we're all from different backgrounds, all different circumstances. I compare myself to other comic creators and I'm like, hold on, I'm actually disabled, really struggling, completely broke, but I'm still making good stuff that could compete
with all these people who have lots of money in the bank and can afford.
Especially when you, like I was doing last year, the advocacy brand is generated by vitriol and being mad at something and identifying a problem. But the problem is step 1 is identifying the problem, and then there should be step 2, 3, 4, etc.
But with the online thing, it's just step 1. You talk about the problem, which is great.
If you're raising awareness and stuff, I'm not going to knock it completely, but it creates this need to escalate. So you can talk about
a problem, but then once you've talked about all the problems, where do you go from there?
And also, who are you trying to create awareness for? So if you're trying to create awareness for the wider population that you need to be on your side, they come in it at that level and they just see these warring fractions and they go, oh, that makes me not want to go anywhere near autism.
Oh, man, the amount of
parents I've seen just bullied straight off the social media for the crime of having a child.
I mean, how does that work?
We're all someone's child.
And sharing some frustrations or sharing some upset. No,
Well, that's the other problem.
Social
it's not
media
the
is
platform for it, though. It's not the
Nah,
platform for intimacy. It's a platform, as you say, for wisdom or curiosity or...
it's the home of passive aggression. That's the problem.
I know, and it's not the best place for it.
Yeah.
Because
So
it doesn't, if ultimately if the cause is ego, well then yeah, you're going to get known as, you know, it's like the Piers Morgan effect, isn't it? You're going to get known as nobody knows what he actually thinks. He's just the angry journalist, you know. It's a bit like, again, and I really enjoy what's his name, Russell Brand. Not necessarily, I don't know really what he says. He's just the wise one, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And really,
his Under the Skin podcast is something that I very much like, and you know, if I was to do some like autism podcast properly, it would be something like that where you really break apart what it is to be human and what it is to exist, and there's something good to be found there. And I think
but sometimes he's going round and round in circles, so you don't quite know what is he actually saying. And again, I'm not saying it's bad. I think it's fantastic, and it's almost like poetry when you listen to him. My point is that you've either got to be the person that just says stuff that people go, "Oh, that's nice," you know, or "Oh, it's the angry voice. I want to hear anger." Or you've got to be somebody that really changes people's perceptions or entertains, and that's the other thing. So, are you entertaining? Are you challenging? Are you changing perceptions? And if we knew the rules, we'd all be doing it, because it'd be quite nice to sit at home being just delivered stuff that was free from everybody and saying how wonderful you were, because it's, you know, it's a funny old existence, isn't it?
but then I guess
if everyone did it, it wouldn't work, which I guess is kind of testament to influencer culture. But I don't know. I think there's two ways to get attention quickly online. It's either be funny or be
controversial, or both. But I think being
funny is probably the best. I'm quite a big fan of Caitlin Moran. I know we can't like her anymore because she broke lockdown, but what she does for feminism by being funny and kind of personal and engaging and accessible, I guess would probably be the best way to describe her writing.
Yeah.
It's so much better for the dialogue than just shouting in someone's face or refusing to hear different parts of the conversation. So my book is kind of ripping her off in that regard of, you know, if I'm going to talk about serious autism subjects, that paragraph's going to end on a joke because it just slices through it. You know, Autism Speaks is this big monster to everyone. We fear its name, we fear that symbol.
It's so childish
and petulant that it just reduces that big monster down to a punchline. And that's the best way to defeat the perceived enemy.
There's no, I'm not argumentative, so I'm not going to be argumentative. I like justice. So if something is said that's unjustified, you're funny and you're clever, and that's what you're doing. So I just think you've got to keep doing it, and the proof of the pudding is that you're doing it and it's working.
Yeah,
I think, you know, it's, again, you know, overnight success doesn't come overnight. So I'm not going to be sad if, you know, when we film a live show, if it ends up with, you know, 50 views on YouTube, I'm not going to be upset because I know that I've gone out and done something that was really important to me, because it's what I wanted from the autism community. Same with the book. I couldn't find any really nice books about an adult diagnosis. There's plenty of memoirs and stuff that are brilliant, but what I wanted didn't exist, so I went out and made it.
Which is exactly the same for the live show. I want to see some
autism comedy that also has serious undertones. Go out and make it.
Someone's got to do it. And you know,
you wanted to create some quality dialogue on the internet, and you're doing it. That's what you've got to do. I like having interaction, so I think, well, I've got to make the interaction, which is why you and I got together. Wouldn't have happened.
It's interesting. I feel I faded into obscurity this year, but it's probably not the reality. It's just that I was getting more clicks and more attention last year because I was so engaged in the discourse, you know.
But the weekly conversation, everyone had to have their
opinion on it, and that's how you stayed relevant. But the problem is, it's just everyone saying the same thing. No resolution comes of it. The same argument's going to come back in a few months' time. What is the point? What are we doing here?
Well, maybe your live show and the book are about saying it somewhere else in a different medium. So maybe, you know, you've tried that medium. I do think it's hard to sustain.
I think I love social
media. I love the communities. I love the friends I've met through it. And, you know, I wouldn't have met you if it wasn't for what I did online and with the book. But I don't know. I think someone gave me a great Latin quote, but I can't remember it. It's social media is the life support system that is also slowly killing me, because I see all these unpleasant things that I can't change. And it kind of makes me feel quite alienated and disenfranchised from my own community, who's kind of the last port of call.
Because I've been excluded. And
it's a bit like, you know, when in the olden days, you know, you chose which paper to read because it would feed you it gave you the voice that you resonated with. So I'm not going to name names, but there's certain paper you just wouldn't read that because that didn't talk to you. You'd go and read that paper, or even TV. When I was a child, we didn't watch ITV, we watched BBC because that's how it was. And I suppose it's great because there's much more democracy in that now. We haven't got our own filters. We're not discerning enough. Maybe we need someone to take control of it a bit.
Yeah, it's interesting.
This is what you need.
It's probably a generational thing as well. Like, I think a lot of the outrage culture and aggression and fighting comes from the younger generation. And I was just of that generation where we knew what life was like before social media, but not quite enough. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what it's like inside the head of someone who's lived with social media all their life and how they feel about it. Because to them, it's probably more real. Whereas to me, I feel like it's like the Matrix. It's like a simulation. It's pretty real. And a lot of it is probably coming from a place of realness, but it's not, there's something quite off about it. And it's like the Matrix.
We can't have it both ways, because we're saying we want to give, autistic individuals a voice on this platform. But when there's somebody who's kind of diluting the voice or being controversial, we can, oh no, not that voice. And it's like, again, we can't determine that who's going to be online.
It's funny, I was watching a big fight unfold on Facebook on one of the autism groups about someone made a big list of words you can't say, and a lot of the words on there weren't controversial.
Like what? Give me an example.
So what you would expect from a list like that is like the R word, or some of the certain words Ricky Gervais would use, but none of that was on there. It was stuff like, you can't say Aspie, you can't say Asperger's, because of, obviously it turned out that doctor worked under the Nazis. But that word is so far removed from the actual bloke. And you're punishing these people who have that as their identity.
Who says you can't use it?
The man on the internet. But this is the thing.
I think it's a bit like the gay and bisexual and queer. They can call, queer people can call themselves queer, but we can't. And gay, it's tricky, because one might say, well, you've got to choose. But unfortunately, usually in other minority groups, let's call it a minority group. There's a common thinking. But the very nature of autism means that there's quite a lot of dogma within people's thinking. So I don't know how flexible people are, because the community can only really thrive as a community once it's collected. So if you think about the gay community in the last 20 years, it's come together. It's gone, this is who we are. We're loud and proud, and anybody that doesn't want to be kind of goes, that's fine. You go off and do that, but I don't want to be that. But they're not saying, no, we're not that. Whereas in autism, you've got, no one's going, well, you go and be autistic like that because I'm going to be over here. They're going, no, you can't be autistic like that. It's not my
autism, so it's wrong.
Yeah, you can only be autistic the way I want you to be autistic. No one's going, well, if you want to have, Aspie and thingy, that's fine. I'm not doing that. But in the gay community, it's very much, I think, and I'm not gay, so I can't ask for them, but, you can go and be loud and proud. I accept that's how you want to be, but I'm not. Or you can be, they're more accepting, I think, within their own community. And I don't know how you get autism to be more accepting within, so there's a collective voice that then goes out to the world. Maybe that's what we've got to try and get, and I just think that's really hard, because how do you do that? Let's have a little circle of people who think like me and we'll become the community. No, because you can't. It's so hard. Maybe we're not there yet. Maybe it's another 20 years. Again,
I'm always banging on about social media, but coming back to social media, and then when I didn't really meet any other autistic people until this year. Being at your filming dates and then being at these group sessions and stuff, that's when you start to meet autistic people. And the disconnect between the online culture and the actual real life culture is so different. And I think if we are going to make progress, it's probably going to be in the real world. Because, take when we all met each other on that day, what's our preferred identity? That conversation lasted 20 seconds. Everyone respected each other's choices. We got on with the day. Whereas online, that would probably still be going on today. And it's interesting about how
people were better behaved when they were in live. They were better behaved, or do you think it's actually, when I see the person, I'm much more accepting?
I think it's because you see a real human person rather than a little digital avatar, and I think there's that disconnect. And then, like you said, the community needs to come together as a community, because right now it's a series of cliques. You've got there's kind of the parents in one camp, there's the neurodiversity lot in one camp who's very positively charged, and then there's I don't know what they call themselves anymore. I think they used to call themselves the autistic dark web, but it's very negatively charged. And I think the solution would be you get everyone together to see eye to eye on a common enemy. But then I don't know if enemy is the right word, because then that kind of makes it a bit militant.
Well, that's the other thing, because you don't want to make it them and us, because...
Yeah, this is where the huge problem is, because...
You don't want to make it anybody that's not autistic or anybody that's not autistic needs to be separate. It is hard because I don't think there's another condition that exists within this context. Do you? I mean,
No, not as a condition, but as a culture, it's surprising how every culture is exactly the same. You know, I came from comics Twitter, where it's all comic creators, and it's exactly the same fights and
oh, is it?
cliques. And then I was dating a girl who does a lot of knitting, and she's like, yeah, knitting Twitter, their arguments are amazing. I was like, what? And it's
why would it be part of that debate, the knitting Twitter debate?
it sounded too much for me. I was like, oh, it's a bit too fighty. But it's then this really bugged me, and it's something that's been under my skin for a while now, kind of scratching away at me, is why are humans like that? And it's, you know, we've had that since we were up in the trees when we were apes, the us versus them, the need to protect our own. So we're automatically drawn to these cliques to despise the other. Isn't there a theory that a human can only identify about 150 people as actual people, and the rest are just generalized stereotypes?
Oh goodness, that's really interesting, isn't it? I'm just thinking when I've been to some of these big, we've been to some big conferences, like, you know, Damien Milton, who's a big researcher, and he puts on conferences with autistic researchers presenting about their research to quite a large autistic audience. Actually, we always go because Jane and I will go to the opening of an envelope. We will. And that's really interesting because then you think, oh, this is the community here. It still feels quite discordant. You know, somebody can say something up on the stage and people, the great thing about autism, they shout out that they don't agree. And
really, is that what it's like?
Quite scary. It's quite scary to put your, you know, to put your voice there, because even in the research field, and that's the other thing, isn't it? Because research, it doesn't really matter if it's not the lived experience. They're going to challenge it. So I don't know where the community can ever, well, this sounds very negative and I don't mean that. Being quite a productive, creative person, I would love to think of a way of how do you get the community, first of all, realizing collectively that there has to be a community voice, because they might not even think that, and then bringing it about. Because I think the gay community have done that quite well. I might be wrong.
But I don't think they did
that through social media, which is why I think this is why it gets different. They were doing that back in the 80s and 90s.
They did it through parades and dressing up. I mean, that's very naive, but, you know, it's about and unfortunately, you put lots of autistic people in the room together, and that's a sensory minefield, because that's their challenge, isn't it? That's their kind of their allergy. You know, large groups of people with lots of different discourses. It's never going to be a place where they can exist. So actually, the context that they need to develop this community is not accessible to them. So they use social media, which on one level is brilliant, and you would know that it's brilliant for you guys. But on another level, it's absolutely toxic.
Yeah, there's a huge
duality to it. It's a blessing and a curse. But I don't know, it all changed for me when I started doing stuff with guys like you, because it quickly became clear this is something bigger than myself. When it was just me on social media, this is me. You know, you kind of, in your head, you
become the leader. You know, this is my
community. I'm going to change it. I'm going to bring about what I feel is right for the community. But then when you meet other people and everyone's just getting on with their lives, and you see the human element of it, and two, you realise you're just a cog in the machine, and it's important to what kind of cog do you want to be. And I kind of want to be a nice shiny one. And
I've quickly realised that, you know, with being
silly and doing my little comic strips and stuff, I'm not going to change the world, but I'm going to change someone's world, and just one would be enough.
And you enjoy doing it. So that's the other thing. If you
I'm changing my world as well. So that's a huge factor in it as well.
And I trained as an actress many years ago. So I've worked in the world of, you know, not professional world of fame. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't famous, but it's really interesting if I'm not in it anymore, looking at people who become famous, people who don't become famous, and why is it some people do and what some people don't. And I don't think there's a science. So I think sometimes you have to sit back, do what you do, and see if it comes to you. There are things that you can do. And, you know, I reckon that if you just keep doing what you're doing, authentically connected to you, it will come to you, whatever that is. But maybe it'll be a combination of everything. You know, the live stuff you haven't even touched on yet, that could be massive.
Yeah.
You're allowed back in theatres. But, you know, it could be massive because... And you like people. It'd be a wonderful way for you to connect with people on your terms.
Oh, yeah. Because, you know, at its core, it's just a book launch. We're all going to go there and mingle. But part of that is this 45-minute show that's, you know, a huge chunk of it is stand-up comedy, having a massive laugh at me, having a massive laugh at, you know, some of the sillier parts of the culture, some of the more ridiculous elements. But then it turns really serious. And you're going to have this emotional roller coaster. And I think maybe...
Good. Where would you like it to, okay, 5 years from now, if you can do that thing, what would you like to be spending your day doing? I do a lot of coaching with people about the future.
Honestly, I want to see my book adapted into TV. I think it could be a really good
dramedy, like Fleabag or something. You could make a really good autism comedy drama, and I think the comedy element
is what will make people take it seriously.
But I don't know, it's interesting to
work out what I want and how to do it, because I think representation in media is really tricky because it's so divisive. Like, what's a big popular autism show? Atypical on Netflix or something like that. It splits the audience down the middle. Some people love it.
Some people think it's the most offensive thing that's ever happened.
And the A word starting again. You know, one with the little boy?
I've meaning to
check that out because I like Christopher Eccleston. He's never really done a bad performance.
Very human. I watched the first series, and they don't make autism the centre, which is good, but autism is in the family context. And obviously, I always wanted to create more debates because that's my thing. I've always wanted people to not just see, oh, this is autism. I want them to go, but why does the child do that? And if we can get to the why, the sensory, it's a condition in the brain, then that helps people understand rather than go, oh, autism looks like that. Okay, well, I'll recognize autism when I see it. It's so much more than that. That's the only problem I have with it, because they used to talk about this child's behavior, but never talked about what was going on underneath. Yeah. But it's a nice little piece. I like it. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing it on Tuesday to see where they've gone with the second series, but nice little piece.
Yeah, I did a whole chapter of the book about representation in media. I watched like every single film I could get my hands on. And I think the secret is you can't do a single piece of good autistic representation. What you need is
100 films showing 100 different autistic experiences.
We're doing the Autism Festival. That's what we could do when we come out of this.
Oh, like a film for, oh, yeah.
Yes, that's another thing. Okay, so come on board, because my friend, met Joy. Is Joy there on day one? Blonde hair. Anyway, she is a producer and she does a lot of work with BAFTA. And she was trying before this happened, because we make those short films, as you've seen some of the kids' films, but they're not particularly, there's no narrative there, it's just kids talking about autism. But she's trying to collect, and our films have won awards in America, where she's been out to get our awards, and it's been the autism section. There's been about 4 or 5 different films. So she's already collecting quite a lot of nice little films that she wants to bring to BAFTA and say, right, let's do an evening. And that's a start, isn't it? And Absolutely. It could be that we have a whole weekend, because you've got, so many big blockbuster films. You've got the little independent films, and it could end up being some kind of, I don't know, something. I never know. I'm always about the thing that could lead to the thing. But there are lots of opportunities there. I just need to get galvanized. I was literally buzzing on these ideas, probably like you in January. Then it all went a bit.
Yeah, it's.
And actually setting yourself big goals at the beginning of this was just too scary. I think now we can start to think, actually, September, October, maybe there'll be some things happening, but we just don't know.
Because I think when it first happened, there was a motivation to let's make the most of this, let's make some content. Autism Awareness Month's coming. I recorded my book as an audiobook. I did all these podcasts. Didn't really go anywhere because everyone's got their own stuff on their plate. They're not commuting to work,
so they're not listening to podcasts.
Yeah, and you're right.
So it was important to take a step back, and then it was also important to keep busy. So I've been doing a lot of illustration stuff, but the idea of another autism project's been really. I did media studies, I did drama studies, and in school it's weird. This will stay in the recording, but it's weird how you go to these career advisors and go, I want to work in media, I want to work in art, and they just go, no jobs in that. Do you want to go stack shelves in Tesco? And it's like, come on now.
I know.
I'm 14 years old. Give me a dream to hang on to, please.
Well, I used to have, because I obviously went to drama school and did that whole thing, and Jane's an actress, and I had parents from my kids' school ringing me up saying, my child wants to go to drama school. Please talk them out of it. And I go, it's one of the best educations they can have. Confidence, self-awareness, working in teams, regardless of the actual money you can earn in the business if you do hit the jackpot. But actually,
forget about money, with all of this.
Exactly. It's about, I learned everything. I learned most of what I learned in my 3 years at drama school. I didn't realize it then, but I do now.
A friend of mine
who's a comedian, filmmaker, podcaster, and he always said, don't worry about the money will come after. And I've always held on to that as my mantra, and it gives you so much freedom to do what you want, and then because it's your true vision, it's usually going to be more successful. So, I like the idea of...
It can be deeply frustrating, sadly, don't you know it?
Oh, yeah, massively. I've got plenty of
books that have failed. I've got a tattoo on my finger right now with a book that failed massively, and the artist fell out with me over it. It's this huge drama, and I have to look down every day at this thing that went wrong. And
What's on your finger? What does it say?
It's the logo for a comic I did But the comic that was came out at the same time this big autobiographical book I did, not the autism one. And it just kind of got drowned out because the autobiography thing was really successful because it was really good, and the other one was just kind of a sci-fi thing, and that's an oversaturated market. But I don't know. But yeah, on the autobiography, this is where it needs to be. You know, all the autobiographical stuff I've done, that's the good stuff, and I think that needs to be rolled out into. You know, I'm a huge fan of comedy, and then we've got this kind of renaissance going on at the moment of this kind of happy sad comedy. You know, with stuff like Fleabag and Derry Girls.
Have you watched Ricky Gervais's Afterlife? It's beautiful.
I've seen the first series.
Yeah, that fits this happy sad thing, and it's like you could do
That series is beautiful. He's written it so beautifully.
If you took my
2 books and put them into a 6-episode comedy drama, it could win awards because it's got this super tight narrative. It's about a man who's like a hero and a villain. He does bad things, good things, and it's this really complex 3-dimensional thing, and that happened completely by accident because it was real. So you don't have to write good fiction, you just have to write good reality.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
write it well, and write it in a rhythm. And I suppose find your format. So if you think about Fleabag, there's a format there, the talking to camera, the kind of the exaggerated relationships. Yeah, it's just finding that, isn't it? And then going for it. I mean, the problem is there's no right. You know, I've got friends who've written amazing scripts and they're still sitting on people's floors going, yeah, we'll commission that 5 years later. But there's definitely a route to it. I mean, the thing is, all you can do is write it and put it on someone's desk. At least then you've done your part.
And then if it doesn't happen,
I'll draw it as a comic. It's fine.
I had.
Yeah, I'm happy to
have done something. Like, I really didn't expect the autism book to do anything. I thought, maybe if friends and family would buy it. But then when the Kickstarter ends at 250% funded and celebrities have retweeted it and stuff, and I've done a thing. How am I going to handle that?
It's real. The beast is out the bottle.